The Commission for the Blind held their regular meeting March 27th, 2026 in Portland, Oregon.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the March 27th meeting of the Oregon Commission for the Blind. It is 1:02 p.m. and this meeting is called to order. Max, would you please take roll?
Oh, certainly. Chair Nadira Broom has been noted as present. Michael Babcock.
Present.
Laurel Hudson.
Present.
Dr. Alan Labram.
Present.
Stephanie McGarry.
Present.
Nalacey Porter.
Present.
Scott Wall.
Present.
Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Max. Okay, we move ahead with welcoming our new commissioner, Michael Babcock. For some of us, it's welcoming you back, Michael. Welcome back to the board. It's good to have you with us. I'm going to open up. I'm going to open up the mic to any of the commissioners who want to welcome Michael.
This is Scott Wall. Welcome, Michael. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Hey, Michael, it's Laurel. Yeah, welcome back, buddy.
Thanks, Laurel.
I always enjoy hearing your questions. I just want to put that on the record.
So this
Mike.
it's okay. Sorry.
I was going to say, hey, Mike, this is Nalacey. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
And look forward to serving with you.
This is Alan. Nice to have you back, Michael.
Thanks, Alan.
Hi, Michael. My name's Stephanie McGarry. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one that will be asking questions.
Likewise. Thanks, Stephanie.
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we move ahead with recognizing and thanking our outgoing Commissioner Lillian Goodman. Lillian, I'll let you speak in a moment if you want to say something, but it's been a pleasure serving with you and you'll be missed. Thank you so much for your service and I wish you all the best. Go ahead, Lillian, if you want to say something.
Hi, yeah, I would just like to say, thank you for this opportunity. It's been great serving on the board for the past 8 years. Wow, gosh, seems like a long time. But yeah, it's been a great experience, and I will miss being on the board.
Okay. Once again, the mic is open to the other commissioners.
Hey, Lillian, it's Laurel. Good luck with everything. You are a bright star and you're going to do great things. I know it.
Thank you.
Lillian, this is Alan. It was nice to work with you on the board. Good luck with your next adventures.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Lillian. This is Scott. Same. Thanks for being on the board and good luck wherever you go.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, Lillian, this is Nalacey. I didn't get to serve with you long, but I'm glad I got the few meetings I did, and I wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
I'm not sure if I'm mute. Can you hear me? I didn't know if I was muted or not.
We can hear you.
Yep, I can hear you.
So I wish you well, whatever your new adventure is. This is Stephanie McGarry.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Lillian, this is Daisha, and on behalf of the agency, I just want to extend my sincere gratitude to all of the work that you've done on our behalf. And Lillian, I did get the chance to visit a couple weeks ago, and she promised that she'll stay in touch, so we'll be able to continue to track her success and her next adventure. So we're grateful for you. And I think Max is screen sharing a copy of a visual depiction of your plaque, and he's graciously going to read that to you.
Okay, perfect.
And Lillian, you will receive it, and it will have a Braille backing. So
perfect.
it will have print on the front and then all of the text in Braille.
Great.
Go ahead, Max. I think we might not be able to hear you.
Lillian, the plaque is made of glass with a silver base, and it is embossed with the words, it has the Commission for the Blind logo at the top, and then it reads, Oregon Commission for the Blind presents this award to Lillian Goodman with gratitude for your guidance and commitment. Commissioner 2018 to 2026. Thank you very
Wow,
much.
thank you. Thank you so much.
You, Lillian. Okay. So we move ahead with the approval of minutes from the February 6th meeting. The minutes were sent out as usual beforehand. So I hope you all had a chance to look over them. And now I'll be looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
This is
Stephanie,
Scott. Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the minutes as mailed.
Thank you, Scott. Looking for a second?
Stephanie, I second them.
Thank you, Stephanie. Max?
Certainly. So Nadira,
I approve.
Michael,
Yes.
Laurel,
I approve.
Dr. Labram,
I approve.
and the Lacey.
I approve.
Scott and Stephanie are counted as ayes. The motion passes. Motion carries.
Hey, thank you, Max. All right. Now we proceed with the audience introduction.
Thank you. My name is Max West. I'm the executive assistant here. Daisha Johnson is our executive director. Ron Stewart, director of business enterprise program. Kat Martin, the chief financial and information officer. Paul Coons, director of independent living services. Jim Portillo. I don't see Jim here. Clay France, our internal auditor, and Jonathan Scrimenti is our workforce innovation manager. Have I missed anyone else? Welcome, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Max, and yes, welcome everyone. Okay, now we move on with public comment. Is there any public comment today? Okay, hearing none. We move on to the executive director report. Daisha?
Good afternoon, commissioners. I am sending greetings from our nation's capital. Kat and I are here for the spring meeting of the Council of State Administrators and Vocational Rehabilitation and the National Council of State Agencies for the Blind. And there is like jackhammer, they're like demolishing something right next to us. But so I apologize if you can hear background noise. We will start today with our donations and financial report. And Kat Martin.
Thank you, Daisha. And good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and my OCB colleagues. Beginning with the February 2026 bequest and donation statement, interest earnings on the cash balance in the fund over the prior 2 months was $5,578. OCB received just slightly over $3,000 in new donations and a cash balance on February 28th of $845,778 after accounting for credit card processing fees was recorded. Referencing the financial status report next, the Commission's legislatively adopted budget for the biennium 2025 to 2027 is $9,522,624 general dollars, $1,149,704 other fund, and $22,158,954 federal fund limitations, for a total of $32,831,282, 67 positions, and 67 full-time equivalents. With 8 months or 33% of the biennium now complete in the statewide financial management application and projecting 16 months into the future to the end of the biennium, we're once again looking at a shortfall when comparing budget to projected expenditures, despite receiving reallotment dollars in last summer's process with the Rehab Services Administration. Current projections suggest that special payments, which are services to clients provided by other than the commission personnel, and durable goods like computers acquired on participants' behalf, will be just over $3 million over budget. While that's consistent with trends in previous years, and despite some ability to offset this with underspending in key categories like personnel, related salaries and benefit costs, and agency-specific services and supplies, the total variance for the close of the biennium as of this reporting is expected to be $439,921, which is 1% over the legislatively adopted budget. Additionally, while revenue utilized for the first third of the biennium is trending as budgeted for our first 8 months, budgeted revenue is not the same thing as cash available to cover our expenditures. With federal funding for the current year essentially flat to last year's awards, the amount of actual cash available to the Commission for use between July 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2027 is estimated at $30,745,348 versus the amount of cash required to finish out the biennium based on our average monthly spend rate, which is in excess of $1.3 million a month. The total cash required to complete the biennium is estimated to be $33,975,429. That means the forecasted gap between estimated available and expected cash is $3,230,082, leaving us short 2.5 to 3 months of cash to complete the biennium in June of 2027. That concludes my financial reporting. May I address any questions for you?
Yeah, before commissioners ask questions, you may recall we were in a similar position with federal revenue a year ago, and then a year ago before that. We've continued, because of our expenditures on the case service side, we've continued to become increasingly actually over-reliant on reallotment of VR dollars. We used to have a significant surplus of federal vocational rehabilitation funds that were built up during the pandemic when we were largely delivering no-cost services. And we have since that time, with the escalation of costs for serving clients and the increase of clients in the vocational rehabilitation program, we have burned through the reserves and are now challenged by just predicting some stable funding for the remainder of the biennium. We will go after reallotment again this summer. So one of the things that I just want to call your attention to is there's really no action for us to take right at this immediate time related to our cash shortfall. Kat and I have a meeting with the chief financial officer for the state of Oregon to talk about the status, so that they're not surprised by that in case we need to come in for some one-time funding. We're also, until the reallotment, which the decisions happen right around Labor Day, there's really not any immediate actions that we can take to address it. Other than being super conscientious and about our expenditures, and obviously going into order selection, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then we're also holding vacancies to try to offset the client services expenditures. So we'll talk a little bit more about the budget when we talk about building the next budget for 27-29, but I just wanted to give you that context.
Stephanie? Am I muted? Shoot.
No, you can go for it.
Okay,
You have
sorry.
a question
So
for
this
Kat,
so this reallotment that you asked for, is there a certain amount that you can ask for, and how likely are we to get it?
It's a great question, Stephanie. Last year we asked for 10 million and we got a little under 3. So it is a little bit unpredictable that there are years in which we ask for a certain amount and we get all of it.
Okay.
There were some trends where we were getting around a little over half of what we had asked for. Last year was a little bit of an anomaly because the previous federal year was flat funded. We got flat funding, and federal fiscal year 24. And because of that, and it happened in the middle of the year because there was some lengthy continuing resolutions, states had more state match available to them that they couldn't spend because the federal award was limited. So in 25, last year's reallotment, they had more funds available to pick up any extras. So my prediction and hope, maybe it's more hope than prediction, is that there potentially, because of the economic changes around the country, that there may be more reallotment available. So long story short, we will match as much, we will ask for as much as we can possibly match. Historically, one year we tried to basically do a projection of typically what we would have realized in reallotment, and then do a factor analysis to say, okay, if we usually get 67%, we'll project our request to reflect a higher amount. And we got all of it. And we had to scramble around for match. So we will do our best to read the tea leaves and come up with sufficient match to draw down as much as we can.
Okay, another question. So say we get enough money to exceed the $3 million that we don't have to reach our budget. Will that change the order selection at all?
That is a very good question. Most likely not, because the federal fiscal year goes through September 30th. And what Kat is talking about is we would expend all of our available non-pre-ETS funds sometime a year from now, which means we would be short for the very first part of the next biennium that starts July 1st, 2027. And we ideally, in a perfect world, would have funding that would get us through September 30th of 2027. So if we run out of money a year from now, we would have several months where we would be limited to just being able to have general fund expenditures. So it probably, unless we got a significant amount, would not affect the trajectory of order selection. It could affect the categories that we could open up and who we could serve, if that makes sense.
Yes, awesome.
We will always maximize serving as many people as we can. That is always going to be our goal.
Awesome.
All right. Any other questions for Kat about the donation and financial report? All right. I appreciate, and Kat had spent extra time talking about and analyzing the revenue part. And the reason why I want you to kind of have that context is because when we talk about the next budget that you'll be walking us through this summer, that particular point about the revenue is going to come back up later in the meeting. So just a little teaser for you. All right. Thank you, Kat, very much.
Thank you,
And
Daisha.
while we are focusing on the finances, I want to recognize Kat and her team. One of the things that the state of Oregon recognizes is financial excellence related to year-end close activities. And if you meet certain criteria, you receive a Gold Star certificate. And Kat and her team once again received the Gold Star certificate for state fiscal year that ended June 30th of last year. And I'll just read a little bit of this letter that I received. It says, the Chief Financial Office's Gold Star certificate is awarded to state agencies that provide accurate and complete fiscal year and in fiscal year information in a timely manner. Clearly, the Gold Star is a challenge to earn, and its achievement is due primarily to your agency's diligent efforts to maintain accurate and complete accounting records throughout the year. So I just want to thank Kat for your hard work and maintaining excellence within the state government.
Thank you, Daisha.
I second that.
Yes,
Thank you, Kat.
congratulations.
Congrats.
Great job, Kat.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Especially when you just finished the Olympics, the gold just feels like it has extra meaning during Olympic years for some reason to me. So I
Yeah.
pictured like a gold medal around each of the accounting staff's necks. Maybe I should get some gold medals.
How about some gold chocolate medals? Even
Oh,
better.
that's a good idea. It's actually a
Oh.
really good idea, Stephanie. Not using public funds, of course.
Of course
Of
not.
course not.
Of course not. Dacia's dime. All right, moving on to the federal update. If you will recall, we were kind of waiting for the Trump administration to decide what actions they would be take to move the Rehabilitation Services Administration functions out of the U.S. Department of Education into either the U.S. Department of Labor or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And as of this afternoon, unless something came in the last 20 minutes or so, there have been no actions taken by the Trump administration to make that move. We have been told by our sources and policy analysts that work on the Hill that that change is imminent, and they haven't made or announced the decision as to where the Rehabilitation Services Administration functions would go. But that change is still expected to happen at any moment. I'll pause to see if there are any questions about that particular element of the federal update.
Stephanie,
Yeah, Stephanie.
sorry. Do you think that's due to people calling their local representatives to say, "Hey, we want this to stay"? I know that National Federation of Blind has been hitting lots of phones for about that stuff. So
All of that helps.
Yeah.
That technically the actions, if you'll recall when we talked about in February, the placement of the Rehabilitation Services Administration is memorialized in statute.
mhm.
So they actually can't move the Rehabilitation Services Administration permanently because it is by law housed in the U.S. Department of Education. So the what they're contemplating currently is technically maintaining it in the U.S. Department of Education, but through an interagency agreement that they would form between either one of those agencies, they would move all of the functions of that department. So Congress, from what we understand, have been watching the actions with interest and potentially even looking at scheduling hearings to oversight hearings to understand more about what the administration is attempting to do with their efforts related to the Rehabilitation Services Administration.
Nice.
So everything helps. Thank you, Stephanie, for your leadership around that.
Yes, of course.
All right. And then the next federal update, and Kat alluded to it in our financial report. We were awaiting our federal award and we did receive it a few weeks ago. And our federal award was for the vocational rehabilitation program was $2,000 more than it was last year. It did have a cost of living in that. And then I'll talk about that in a second, but our older blind award was actually $2,000 less than it was in federal fiscal year 25. So we literally essentially were exactly flat funded for our federal funding compared from federal fiscal year 26 to 25. And on the vocational rehabilitation side, what happens is they do a fairly complex analysis before they distribute the funds to states. And that involves looking at population and per capita income. And because of Oregon's relatively flat population growth and our increase in per capita income relative to other states, we actually didn't get much additional funding. That means that other states probably fared significantly better than Oregon in that analysis and received some type of an increase. So that is how the analysis goes. What we have been told is that RSA certainly acknowledged that states were probably got less money than they expected, and they were hoping that they would be able to adjust or, factor that into reallotment decisions. I don't know how that exactly would look, but we are hoping that the reallotment would become available, and recognizing that some states are really, really in need of additional federal funds, like Oregon. Any more questions on federal stuff?
This is Nadira. So you said the older blind got 2,000 less.
Yes.
What did they use to determine what to give to the older blind, given that there's
Yeah.
a higher demand in Oregon for the older people in the
Yeah, that's a
program?
great question, Madam Chair. The older blind program has essentially been flat funded. And they had, I suspect they had sequestration that took money off of the top of the award. And there's just some states we received, I think 406,000. I think Kat can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the amount. And some states get $225,000, their minimum allotment state. So every state that I'm aware of has significant state contributions well beyond the federal award, because there's just no way to keep up with the basic federal program to help seniors be independent in their homes and communities. It is a significant policy issue. The National Council of State Agencies for the Blind has been working really hard to try to increase the appropriation for older blind for many years. The challenge is there are lots of programs for older adults that are also grossly underfunded, and we just typically do not have the type of population that gets Congress's attention. Unfortunately, because there are some major gaps in programs and funding for older Americans. But we continue to try, and we will continue to focus on that population and the importance of serving it.
Thank you.
Any other questions about federal stuff? All right, and just moving on to my final item in my report for today, just to acknowledge that the legislative session did end in early March. I think the first Friday in March, if I was tracking it. So the legislature is back out of town until next year. They will have interim legislative days, but their next full session will start likely sometime in January of 2027. If you will recall, we were tracking potential 5% reduction of general fund that they may take in order to shore up the shortfall as a result of the big, beautiful bill, HR 1, passed by the Trump administration and Congress. That did not materialize. So the good news is we were able to maintain all of our general fund, which we need very much so. And so that was good news. And we did receive what's called a salary pot. So when salaries are negotiated through the collective bargaining process in the unions, that happens after budgets are finalized. And so in the even years, they also adjust agency budgets and limitation. Means we get a little bit more general fund. And then they increased our expenditure authority for federal and other funds, which is kind of helpful. But if you recall, a budget is not the same as cash. And so it is not super helpful to have an increase in federal limitation if you don't have the funds to support it. And that was really the bulk of the activities for this session. It was relatively quiet where the Commission for the Blind was concerned. Any questions about the 2026 legislative session? Not hearing any, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Daisha. And thank you again, Kat. All right, so we move into old business, and we begin with the federal compliance audit, state fiscal year 2024.
Great. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Clay France. I'm the internal auditor for the agency. It is a pleasure to be here with you today, and I would like to take just a couple of minutes to talk about this topic, the federal compliance audit for state fiscal year 2024. You may recall it was just a year ago at this time, so in the March 2025 Commission meeting, I covered a topic which was addressing an audit finding and our corrective actions for that audit finding. And so today is just closing the loop on that topic. So as a little bit of background, the Secretary of State auditors perform the federal compliance work for the Rehabilitation Services Administration during the statewide single audit. And typically for OCB, we get visited once every 3 years. And the objectives for us, or for them on our audit, is to determine if we are compliant with the federal requirements over the vocational rehabilitation grant, which is our largest grant, and to determine if we have effective internal controls over compliance and if we're accurately reporting federal expenditures. So in 2023, as part of the 3-year cycle, we were audited by the Secretary of State, and we received an audit finding at that time about the need to strengthen internal controls over how we were reporting performance data. More specifically, it was around how we capture the starting date of employment for clients and their hourly wage at exit. So we created a corrective action plan for that audit finding. We created a new case note within our case management system where we used that to document the client employment start date and the wage at time of exit. We also strengthened the internal control around a case file review process, which would verify that information, and then we provided additional training. So that we implemented those corrective actions in September 2024. In November of 2024, the Secretary of State auditors came back as a follow-up audit to determine if our corrective actions were effective. Unfortunately, because of timing requirements on their side, they had to pull a sample of transactions from a time period prior to when we had implemented corrective actions. So it was no surprise to us that they found the same issue was still occurring. But fortunately, they came back just in January of this year. They pulled a much more recent sample of transactions and reviewed that. And we were excited to hear in February, they notified us that they believed our corrective actions were successful, that they found no discrepancies in their testing, and that these findings were closed. That's great news. It's a little funny because now we're still on the 3-year cycle, so they will more than likely come back the fourth quarter of this year to start a whole new round of testing. But we will be ready for it. Are there any questions from the commission?
And commissioners, I always like to point out that these federal compliance audits are, we just call them quick wellness checks. It is not a comprehensive audit, but it is very helpful. Usually the feds will give this single audit, in our case, the Secretary of State Audits Division, certain audit kind of directions to do during the single audit. And we find it very helpful for them to just have an independent, no charge to us. We do pay a state government service charge to the Secretary of State, but we don't pay them directly for this wellness check. It's very, very helpful to have it happen periodically. So we always are very much open to this opportunity and take it as a learning experience. And Clay takes the lead on our behalf to make sure that we're able to provide them everything they need.
Great. Okay, thank you, Clay. Keep up the good work. Okay, moving forward with the order of selection.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Jonathan Scrimenti speaking, Workforce Innovation Manager, stepping in for Angel Hale as she is out today. Thank you for having us. As a reminder, the order of selection is the fancy term for waitlist as it applies to the VR program. So I'll just do a quick history and then a brief update and answer any questions that you might have. On December 17th, we submitted a request/application to enter the order of selection. RSA provided some feedback. Late in January, we made another submission on February 3rd and then February 27th as well. RSA has acknowledged receipt of our last submission, our most recent one, and acknowledged that management is reviewing it. And at this time, we're in a holding pattern. As the order of selection is part of the state plan, we do suspect that we may just get order of selection approved via the state plan process. So I realize that's a new topic somewhat. The state plan is due April 17th, so that date may be new. So again, nothing has happened other than we are waiting for approval. And I'm certainly happy to pause at this time and see what questions might be out there or points that might need clarified. Desha.
Yeah, so thank you, Jonathan. So the commissioners, as just a recollection, the general agency warned us that it took them about 4 months from the time they started initiating engagement with the Rehabilitation Services Administration until their plan was approved. And we're sitting just a week out, I think, from 4 months for us. So it is not an atypical time frame for them to go through approvals. There are many agencies that are actually in a similar financial position to us around the country. And so they may have a whole, group of them to review. I'm not certain about that. Just what we're waiting for was literally, there was a sentence that at one point in the iteration they asked us to include. And in the most recent exchange with them, they actually asked us to remove that same sentence. And so we removed that content and then sent it back to them. And that was, I think, about a month ago. And we're still waiting to hear back. So this is just part of the process. In the meantime, we're trying to continue to do our work to prepare staff for that transition. And the goal would be to, once we get the final approval from Rehabilitation Services Administration, to move probably within about a 2 weeks' time to implement the order and notify all of the folks that are impacted by it. So we're still preparing. We're doing everything that we can other than entering it officially.
Okay, so this is Michael.
Yes, Michael.
So as of right now, if I'm understanding this correctly, the agency is not in an order of selection. However, it's anticipated that that will be the case in the very near future.
That is a very good way to explain our position. That's correct. We actually thought that we would be in by this meeting. In all transparency, we thought we would be telling you that we had entered already, but our state is taking their time, and we do have our theories related to the timing, that they're just maybe perhaps waiting instead of amending our existing state plan. They will wait for the updates. We're not certain, but in the meantime, we're just trying to do everything that we can to prepare pending their approval. I'm hoping to be able to have some engagement while we're at this meeting to try to get an informal update. But they, as you can remember from my federal update earlier in the meeting, they have a lot going on. So I'm certain that it's probably hard for them to maintain all of the business requirements at hand, given all of the transitions that they're experiencing.
Okay. Right. Well, if there are no further questions, we'll move on with SWEP 2026.
Commissioners, good afternoon again. This is Jonathan speaking. You get me for two topics back to back. All right, SWEP 2026, not only a feel-good program, but an impactful program that the agency offers our youth. So I'll start by just kind of sharing where we're at in terms of applications. We currently have 9 for the Emerging Leaders Program. We have 19 for the Explorations Program. That gives us a total of 29. We do have a couple of applications that are still being reviewed, others that are in eligibility determination. So just so that you're not surprised if those numbers do change just by a couple between now and your next meeting. Orientation is really when we know when the students actually show up, is what those final numbers will be. But we're sitting right at about 29 right now between the two programs. The Emerging Leaders Program will be housed at the Broadway Portland State University Residence Hall. The SWEP Emerging Leaders Program, their orientation will be May 30th. The celebration or the end of the program will be July 31st. The Explorations, that is starting on June 6th with orientation, and that celebration is July 24th. If any of the commissioners have an interest in engaging with SWEP at the dorm or any of the activities, please do reach out to Angel. We love it when folks do that. In that regard, special shout out to Scott Wall. Angel wanted to give him a thank you in advance for his upcoming workshops for SWEP safety. I believe Scott is providing in-person sessions for the Emerging Leaders Program and a virtual option for Explorations. We're excited about this new offering around safety and Scott's wealth of knowledge and expertise that you will bring to the program. So in advance, thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
And I'll turn it over to Daisha. Did you have a follow-up and then questions, or?
We can add, Commissioners, just as a reminder, we are requesting that we adjust given your traditional interest in engaging with the students at the final day of the summer work experience program here in Portland. So that would be to move your meeting from the first Friday in August to the 31st of July. Hopefully that will work, and we've tentatively adjusted the calendar in anticipation of that change.
Any questions, commissioners? So the email was sent out. I hope all of you got a chance to see it. Regarding the adjustment of the date. So I would assume that we can confirm whether you'll be able to come, because we're doing the hybrid thing again, yes?
Correct. That is our plan.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So I assume we can just circle back to this at the next meeting too, to just, confirm who's able to attend. But any questions, commissioners, about SWEP 2026? No?
And Madam Chair, I'll just add, our Director of Independent Living Services, Paul Coons, is also working and coordinating to just increase the safety and awareness of just the community law enforcement and programs in the Portland area. So we're trying to do our best to not only help prepare the students, but also prepare the community as well.
Okay.
Nice.
Great. Okay, so we will now move on to the strategic priorities for the 2026 to 2029 strategic plan, which is an action item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, I want to first of all thank you for your time and attention over the past many months to try to help us update our strategic plan. If you will recall, we started really looking at this in August and October of 2025, just thinking about what the current strategic plan looks like, and then start to reflect on, as we move forward into the future, what the economic and financial condition of the state and also the changes in service delivery and the increased pressure on serving clients, what that might look like for a strategic plan. The goal of a strategic plan is to keep and focus the things that are most important to an organization, irrespective of the challenges that we may be facing, but also not ignoring them. And so one of the things that I appreciated during your February meeting was really a robust conversation about the elements and the components of the work that we do at an agency and what you all individually and collectively felt was the most important. And so we looked at all of the exchange of content over the last several months, particularly honing in on your February discussion. And what we are requesting is that we actually amend or update our strategic plan to be more focused on really our core mission and activities. And that would be to have 2 priority focus areas, one in the area of working, and the second being in the area of independent living. And given the governor's goal and expectations around customer service, and certainly commitment and a value that the agency holds as well, all of the strategic plan will focus with an overall emphasis of customer service without calling out specifically as a strategic priority. So we provided just a little bit of context around those 2 focus areas of working and independent living. And with your approval and guidance, we will come back in your upcoming meeting with an updated full strategic plan for you to review and discuss. So at this point, we're just asking for feedback, and ultimately, if you're ready to approve those 2 priority focus areas of working and independent living today.
Stephanie, so when you're talking about independent living, because of the budget constraints for the aging, is that going to include them as well?
Yes, the focus really is around, it's a different way of saying both. The working is obviously vocational rehabilitation. That's
right.
the primary focus of that. Independent living really has 2 elements of it. It has, seniors, of course, because that is a major significance part of who we serve on an annual basis. But also, if you think about it, for folks who are new to blindness, there is a significant component of independent living that happens before they start preparing ultimately for employment. So it's really both working age folks as well as seniors, but it certainly will have seniors as a primary emphasis in that.
Okay.
Great question.
This is Michael.
Yes, Michael.
First of all, I like you, Stephanie. You were going to ask the same question I was about ready to unmute and ask, but also related to that, though, Daisha.
Yes.
I presume with employment objectives that would include AT instruction as well, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Babcock. One of the elements of the discussion that was fairly significant in the February meeting was talking about the importance of technology. And importance of technology as it relates to being competitive in the workplace. So there was a robust discussion that happened in February. And what I expect, if this makes sense to the commission, is that the draft plan would be informed by those comments, just the really importance of how technology informs everyone's work, but particularly being skilled in technology and the importance of that for individuals who are blind.
So Daisha, I have another question. I don't know if this pertains to this or not, because, being the affiliate president of Oregon of NFB, I get calls from elderly people that they're getting very limited services, such as they're getting a magnifier, some paperwork, and that's it. Is that going to be some changes in that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The independent living program is intended to be fairly light touch. We really are focusing on probably around 3 to 5 visits per individual to just kind of get them set up and hopefully connect them to other community-based resources. We just don't have sufficient resources to do anything beyond that. So if you have folks that have been through, for example, vocational rehabilitation, and have had more comprehensive services, and then they get into the Older Blind Independent Living program, there is a stark difference in what's available through that program. We get $406,000 a year from the federal government to serve the entire state of Oregon. And so Congress never contemplated that the Older Blind Independent Living program would be anything robust. It's really a basic safety net program for Oregonians as they age.
So they can no longer get help marking any of their things?
Oh, no, they should get that.
They're not
Yeah.
I'm getting calls that they're not getting any of these services. They're literally getting a magnifier. I had 4 calls this week. They're getting a
Oh, okay.
magnifier and they're getting paperwork, and that's it. Nothing
I wonder
being,
if the paperwork is talking books. Stephanie, it may make sense for you to connect with Paul,
okay,
our
I'll do that.
Director of Independent Living Services, and we can look into specifically what you're looking at.
Perfect.
Yes, Stephanie, I'd be happy to follow up with you. I know in calendar year 25, we served about just over 1,200 clients throughout the state,
Mhm.
and that's with 6 instructors.
Okay.
So I'd be more than happy to follow up with you.
Okay, great. I will call your office.
Thanks so much. Yeah, appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Hey,
Thank you for
Daisha,
that, Stephanie. It's important. Yeah, Lacey.
Daisha, Lacy here. So, quick question. So within
Yeah.
the living skills, you said there were 2 sections, seniors and those who are working age. Now, is there a priority in terms of who gets served first within those 2 sections of living skills? Or is
Yeah,
it
that's a great question. So for folks who qualify for the independent living, the older blind program, we have obviously we have dedicated funding for that particular program. But if individuals come, the same teachers serve the same folks, because the major funding for the agency is vocational rehabilitation. We would prioritize, if we had to, vocational rehabilitation clients over older blind independent living.
Asia, this is Michael.
Yes.
Quick question about vocational rehabilitation clients and older Oregonians. Can you explain a little bit about what the difference is? Because people are working later in life than what they have in the past. So could someone at 70 who is looking at working qualify for vocational rehabilitation and get that assistance as well?
That's a great question, Commissioner Babcock. And the answer is yes. There is no age. We can start serving folks as early as age 14, and there's no upper age limit for vocational rehabilitation. So we've had folks well beyond what we would consider retirement years who are still working. Some of them self-employed, some of them working in the community, and there would be no restrictions with, how old you are and participating in vocational rehabilitation. Sometimes what happens is someone will come to us in the older blind independent living program, not thinking that they could perhaps continue to work. And then the teacher that serves them in the independent living program refers them over to vocational rehabilitation.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any further questions before I seek a motion? Okay, hearing none. Commissioners, I'm looking for a motion to update the strategic plan to reflect the priorities as outlined by Daisha just now. Good, Daisha? Is that
That's
it?
great.
Yeah,
Yes.
all right. So looking for a motion, Commissioners.
This is Stephanie. I make a motion to accept this.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm looking for
I'll
a second.
second.
Thank you, Michael. Max?
Certainly. Nadira Broom,
I approve.
Laurel Hudson,
I approve.
Dr. Labram,
I approve.
Lacey Porter,
I approve.
Scott Wall,
I approve.
and Stephanie and Michael are presumed ayes. The motion carries.
Great. Thank you, Max, and thank you, Daisha. All right. So now we move into new business. And the legislative concept for background checks, which is another action item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, this is something that was unexpected for the agency, but we did receive a letter from the state police who notified us that they had been exchanging communication with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, who suggested that the several state statutes that give statutory approval to do criminal background checks. And in our case, criminal background checks would be for employees, contractors that provide services to us, and so on, that our statute language was not in alignment with federal requirements. And you received a copy of this letter, and it came in on the 11th of February. But in essence, it reads that for the purposes of requesting a state or nationwide criminal background checks under the ORSs, the Commission for the Blind, it says, may require individuals to have fingerprints. And in order for us to continue to do federal level background checks, which would be nationwide checks, it actually needs to say shall instead of may. So it has to be requirement language. So originally we were thinking about, and they gave the state of Oregon and the state police and all of the impacted agencies until January 2031 to comply. So they gave us 5 years to make the changes. So we were thinking about waiting until closer to the 2031 deadline to make the change. But a couple of things happened. The first thing is that the state police are introducing a legislative concept for the 2027 session. And we have the same, currently, our Senior Assistant Attorney General, Sean Brady, happens to be also the Senior Assistant Attorney General for the state police. So from a financial standpoint, it makes sense for us to move forward with the statutory legislative concept changes in the 2027 session. The advantage to that is in the event that it doesn't go anywhere and the legislature doesn't move it through, we still would have the ability to come back again and try again in the 2029 legislative session. Agencies can submit legislative concepts in the long legislative sessions. So we only are able to do a legislative concept request and submit that to the governor's office in the odd numbered years. So in 2027, we would put it in, and actually it's due next month. And then if it doesn't pass, we would be able to come back in 2029 and try it again. So we are working with the Sean Brady, our Senior Assistant Attorney General. We would submit what's called a legislative concept request by the middle of April. That goes through a process internally within the governor's office. And then if they approve it, it would be submitted to the legislative, what's called legislative council, which is the lawyers for the legislature that actually draft legislative bills. And then if it gets through and is introduced as a governor's bill, an agency bill, it would be pre-session filed for the 2027 legislative session. So at this point, we're asking for your approval to proceed with making these federally required changes to our criminal background checks statute, recognizing that the specific language would be drafted ultimately by the legislators, the drafting attorneys in the Office of Legislative Counsel.
Okay. All right, so I'm looking for a motion To approve.
Adira, can I ask a question first?
Oh, sorry. So sorry. I should have asked for questions. Go ahead, Stephanie.
That's okay. That's okay. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So it's the language that we're changing. However, are all employees having these background checks before they're hired?
Yeah, that's a great question, Stephanie. The answer is we currently are able to do background checks through 2031 with our current existing statutory approval. And how it works is job offers are made pending the background checks actually happen on our behalf through the Chief Human Resource Office of the Department of Administrative Services. So all job offers are contingent on passing the background check.
Perfect. Okay.
That's a great question. Also, volunteers would be subject to background checks, contractors, folks in the business enterprise program.
Okay, any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'll now seek a motion to approve the necessary changes.
I motion to approve it. This is Alan.
Thank you, Dr. Labram. Looking for a second?
This is Scott. I'll second it.
Thank you, Scott. Max?
Nadira Broom,
I approve.
Michael Babcock,
I approve.
Laurel Hudson,
I approve.
Stephanie McGarry,
I approve.
Lacey Porter,
I approve.
and Alan and Scott are presumed ayes. The motion carries.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Daisha. Okay, and we move on to the 2027-2029 budget development.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The final item this afternoon is to just apprise you of the process for the 27-29 budget development. Kat Martin and I attended what's affectionately called the budget kickoff meeting on St. Patrick's Day in Salem. And if it feels like we're always in the budgeting stage, it's because we really are. We don't have much time at all between the legislature approving the current biennium's budget, where we turn around and actually start building the agency request budget for the next biennium. There are a few things that are different this time around. The first thing is part of the budget kickoff is we receive presentations from the state economist and his staff about the condition of the state's economy. And in that process, you will not be surprised to hear that they are projecting that there will be some impacts of the activities that are happening at the federal level and internationally, including the war in Iran, that will affect the economy, not only nationally, but in Oregon. So they are projecting conservatively at this point in terms of what's going to happen with available revenue. So they're anticipating that revenue will go up slightly, but with the cost of goods of services throughout government increasing, they are expecting there to be a gap between the available general fund to pay for government services and the current service level, the cost of doing exactly what we're doing now. So as a result of that, the governor basically is stating to agencies that we will be developing our budget basically with existing resources and not being allowed to ask for additional general fund. So that means that if you have something that you want to do differently, you would have to do it within your existing resources. So that is going to be a challenge for us, given the conversation that we had earlier in the meeting when Kat presented our financial situation. So in the situation where you are short on revenue and you can't ask for more revenue, then it's possible that in the agency request budget, we would maybe have to create a scenario where we would be shrinking the agency down to right size us with the available revenue. What that equates to is perhaps envisioning an agency it's starting in 27-29 that would be smaller, so fewer staff and fewer resources that we would be expending on behalf of clients. There's a couple of things that are really important to remember. The first thing is that the agency request budget is the start of the budgeting conversation. The governor's budget is due by December 1st, and the legislature ultimately has appropriation authority on behalf of agencies. So this is where it's good to be small. Getting the agency to be made whole and us to be able to continue the level of services that we provide to Oregonians. We are statistically insignificant in the big picture. And so I continue to remain optimistic that we would be able to continue to provide the level of services that we are providing now. The unfortunate position that we just are prepared to realize is that typically in an agency request budget, we're trying to grow the agency. You know, we've been talking over the last several months about all of the needs that Oregonians who are blind have. And in a perfect world, we would be able to request adequate resources in order to fill those needs. That is not going to be the case in the 27-29 biennium. So the agency request budget is due actually on your commission meeting day on July 31st. And in the agency request budget, we will do our best to try to project what that revenue would look like. You can anticipate it may have staff reductions in that budget. And the important thing to remember is that this is just the agency's required actions to basically have a budget that matches the current available revenue that we project through June 30th of 2029. It does not mean that that budget will materialize, but it does tee up a conversation with the governor's office and ultimately the legislature that we're hoping will show the importance of the services that we provide, and the importance of having these specialized services available to Oregonians who are blind. So that is what we want to just kind of prepare you for. It is going to look and feel differently for those of you who've been around some budget cycles before, because it won't be a growth period. But I will tell you that we are already starting conversations with folks to set up an opportunity to be able to have the agency be able to maintain our current service delivery. And I'm going to try like heck to do everything in my power in order to be able to tee those conversations up to the right people at the right time. The other element is, and this is where the importance of all of the conversations we've been having with you all over the past several months, the governor has asked agencies or invited agencies to really embed the strategic plan into the narrative portion of the budget. And what they contemplate is, in the event that there are additional resources that materialize, if the economic conditions change, or if they decide to fund agencies at a higher level, they want to have that opportunity to look through agencies' budgets and pick out areas of policy consideration for the governor to include in their budget. So we will, even though we can't put it in the technical budget build where the numbers exist in the system, we will be putting in the narrative all of the important components to be able to maintain our current service level in a way that will be very visible and very evident to everyone that will be looking at it in the governor's budget in the legislative process, why it's important to fund the agency at the level that we currently have. I'm going to pause there because I said a lot of stuff. See if there are questions about that.
Stephanie.
Yes, Stephanie.
So I'll make sure I understand. So in July of this year, we're going to possibly be voting or discussing something for our 27-29 budget.
Correct.
Okay, my other question is, So the NFB Oregon affiliate, we go to Salem every March. That will be in 2027. Who would you suggest we try to talk to help with this?
That is a great question, Stephanie. I would say that once we know the key committee members that will be probably decided, since it's an election year, we will know that probably in early to mid-January of 2027.
Okay.
And that's when they'll set up, and it's really both the policy committee for human services and the House and the Senate,
Okay.
and then the appropriation committees, which is the subcommittee for ways and means for human services. And then there are co-chairs for all that represent all of those subcommittees for ways and means, and that those co-chairs will be a leader from the Senate and a leader from the House of Representatives for Oregon. Those folks are also really important to target. But
Okay.
we certainly can get you that information when it becomes available in early to mid-January of 2027.
Yeah, that would be great because then our members could definitely tell them how this will affect us if we don't have the resources that we need.
Yeah. And you probably will recall when I've talked about this before, but the legislature does not fund agencies for agency benefit. The legislature funds agencies to meet constituents' needs.
Yep.
So when these situations arise, hearing from Oregonians directly about the impact and the power of having these services available to them is what makes all the difference for an agency like ours. Because funding an agency to them it means nothing, right?
Right.
But actually funding services that make a difference in people's lives, that live in their districts, that's what makes a difference to them.
Okay.
Any other questions about the budgeting process? This is not the most comforting budget environment for staff, for agency staff. It is hard to go through and contemplate having to look at a reduction scenario. What I can tell you is that at least in the early stages, it's all theoretical, right? We're really just trying to tee up the right conversation about the importance of fully funding the agency. And that's hard when it's theoretical. People are like, theoretically, I might lose my job, right? And so the conversation become real quick with staff. And it's a challenge because the agency request budget really is a teeing up a long-term conversation. So even though it's a very visible document, it really is not anything but the beginning of a long-term conversation that we won't know the end of until likely June of 2027 is when we'll actually know the answer. And that's hard. That's a long time for staff to kind of be wondering, what the future of the agency looks like. But I continue to be very optimistic. We provide really critical services, and we work really hard at doing that well. And I feel confident that we can get through this kind of rocky place that we are as an organization, and come out the other end with what we need to serve Oregonians.
Thank you, Daisha. Okay, so that concludes all of the agenda items. If no one has any further comments or questions?
So when is
Right.
our next meeting because of this being earlier than April?
Oh, that's a good question. It should be still the first Friday in June. So let's look.
Okay.
When is that date? That will be June 5th.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
All right, so anyone else? Any questions? No? All right. Well, there being no further comments or questions, it is now 2:16 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.